Really excited to facilitate this engaging conversation today, and ready to really get in the weeds here. And just, we'll really keep this conversational and light. Please feel free to put questions in the chat. We'll also have Q&A at the end. So please feel free and encouraged to ask those questions at the end. So first off, I'm going to start just with who is at the top of my screen. Shelby, if you want to quickly explain who you are, what you do, and your experience with CRO.
Yeah, so my name's Shelby. I am the graphic designer here at SyncShow. I handle everything from visual to design, and also as well as helping to improve optimization on websites. So I've been involved with CRO for a while now, helping clients, pick apart their sites and honestly find new things to test and see what works and what doesn't work.
Fantastic. All right, John, do you want to take it away, your intro?
Yeah, hello everybody. I'm John Daters. I'm Vice President of Client Services here at SyncShow. And just real quick about SyncShow, we're a B2B digital marketing agency focused on results-driven marketing for our clients. We focus on manufacturing and industrial work, transportation, logistics, client or professional service, I should say, and then software as a service as well too. That's what I'll say. But my role here at SyncShow is to be in charge of all the strategies, tactics, tacticians and strategists that are within the walls of SyncShow. Basically anything that they touch, whether it be a simple tweet to a full-blown strategy, that they have the tools, resources, and know how to make that a successful strategy for clients. And I'm happy to be here today.
Thank you, John. Christine, would you like to introduce yourself? Christine, we can't hear you.
I was just going to say I'm muted. Thank you, Ellie. I'm Christine Gaffrere. I'm with Warren Rupp, which is part of IDEX Corporation. I'm the marketing manager here at Warren Rupp. We have multiple brands beneath us, including the Sandpiper brand and Forsomatic. And we sell through distribution. So we are always looking at ways to improve our CRO to get more leads to distributors. So I'm happy to be here today and happy to answer any questions anyone might have.
Awesome. Thank you, Christine.
Yeah.
All right, so let's get into the meat of it, really dive into CRO strategy. So John, I'm going to kick it off with you. Oftentimes, companies are doing a great job of driving traffic to their website through blogs, social media, email marketing, and paid efforts like PPC and paid social. But what they're struggling with is converting that traffic to leads so that they can sell to those website visitors and see ROI from their marketing efforts. So my question for you is, how does CRO help companies to get more conversions from their existing traffic?
Yeah, big question. So often when I work with clients, what they say is they want more and more traffic to their website, just assuming that they'll get more leads from it. So there's a couple ways to think about this. So when it comes to CRO, I often, and digital marketing, I often say that digital marketing is leading a horse to water, and conversion rate optimization, CRO, is making it drink. So the way CRO helps companies get more conversions on existing traffic, it answers itself in what it is, the conversion rate optimization. So what you have is you have a bucket of individuals, and let's just say for even numbers, you have 1,000 visitors a day to your website. If within that 1,000 visitors, 100 people convert, that's fantastic. So what usually happens is you say, well, I want more of these visitors. So if we do 2,000, then we should have 200 people convert. Some easy math. Well, that takes a lot of effort, time, and money to double your traffic, right? And you're working at factors of much larger now. Like a factor of moving 1,000 to 2,000 is a little bit harder than moving 100 to 200 in a lot of cases. So you're putting a lot of effort to double your amount of traffic just to double your amount of conversions. Well, what would happen if you were able to make a few tweaks and optimizations to your website, and instead of getting 100 conversions out of every 1,000 visits, what if you're able just to make a few tweaks in order to have 200 visits with the same, or 200 conversions with the same amount of visits? digital marketing costs time, costs money, especially these days where you have to pay for leads in a lot of cases through PPC, through paid social, content creation, though free or SEO is free, still takes time and effort and knowledge. So you got to put that into place in order to get that traffic. And I hate to say it, it's not always a one-to-one correlation of more traffic equals the same amount of conversions. Because a lot of times what you're doing with more traffic is you're getting less qualified traffic back to your website. So your conversion rate actually goes down in a lot of cases. So that 2,000 visitors wouldn't necessarily equate to 200 visitors. It might equate to 150, conversions. It might equate to 150 more conversions. Because what we see is when you start to cast a wider net, you catch a lot less ideal fish in that way. So that is one way to do it, where you can just juice the market and say, I just want a ton more visitors and hope to get more conversions out of it. But in a lot of cases, what you're getting is not that customer that's ready to convert. It's the looky-loos, it's the window shoppers, it's the folks that are not ideal. So I used to work with a lot of clients and who would really just care about their page visits, number of sessions, new visitors, and not really focus on returning visitors, time on site, or what they were doing when they're on the site. So they just like these really big top line numbers. We would work to get more traffic to them, but that wouldn't always equate to the more conversions. I saw this a lot in SEO, search engine optimization, where we would optimize for keywords that had this incredible search volume, and we'd get them on page 1 or 2, have all this traffic, sometimes 10x times the traffic, and they would not get 10x new leads out of it. So they'd be spending all this effort on not great converting traffic, and it's more of a glory figure. Hey, look how cool we are, as opposed to actually a bottom line business number. So one of the great ways that CRO impacts just your business, even if you just take it out from the websites in general, your business, it's getting those people that you are already interested in your product or your service in order to convert more. So it's less effort for more direct leads, which is really nice. I often equate it also in the real world terms for folks that work in brick and mortar. It's like getting those window shoppers that come by. You can say like, okay, I usually get 100 people to stop by my kiosk at the mall a day, sort of thing, but none of them buy anything. Well, what did those window shoppers do for your business? Nothing. You still got to pay the rent. You still got to keep the lights on, but people just looking at your shop don't do anything. It's not the amount of visitors to your shop, it's the amount of conversions that happen in it. So if you can do anything, again, stick with the brick and mortar, to modify your brick and mortar store to say like, I want them to buy this item. That's why you have all these impulse buys as well too. In the real world, impulse buys is conversion rate optimization. I'm taking products that may sit dispersed throughout my store and I'm putting it in a spot that makes it easier to buy and easier to convert. Digital, in its simplest terms, they're doing something very, very similar to that in CRO. You're saying, how can I take all these disparate ideas and products and services and what the clients want, need, think they need, and get it in a place and in a way in front of them that makes it easier for them to do business with us.
That's a great point. And I love that you mentioned that people are often spending all this money trying to derive traffic to their website, but they're not really looking at that conversion piece. And we see it all the time here at Sync Show with clients that are spending tons of money on pay-per-click campaigns, but aren't really thinking about, how do we use our existing traffic and make more out of it? And CRO really is that key component of that. So with that being said, my next question is actually for Shelby. So Shelby, oftentimes the reason that people are not converting on websites is because of the user experience. It needs improvement. Website menus are often the biggest culprit for visitors exiting the site, which costs companies conversions. So what are some of those best practices you'd recommend to improve navigation on websites?
Yeah, so usually when I think of how can we improve a website menu, the first thing I think of is visually, let's make sure all the information under it is easy to understand, digest, and then the user knows where they're going to go next. So a lot of this can be done just as simply as using a mega menu compared to the standard dropdown, especially if you have a lot of navigational items on your site and you have a huge sitemap. This can help make it a lot more visual for the user, so that way they understand what you do and they understand their options they have. So mega menus can be something visual where we're using imagery and a little bit of text and explainer text, so that way you can even get a baseline understanding of what this product page, service page is. Or it can simply just be more of a wider quote unquote drop down where it's all the information listed under that parent item is just listed in columns. Either way, it makes it a lot easier for the user to see your full navigation and better access to your more converting pages. Some other ways I think too that help with your navigation is honestly just better at navigation organization. So sometimes you have sites that have a sitemap that's pretty poor compared to what it could be. So that could be pages that make no sense under one parent are making it more confusing to get around the site. So taking like pages and making sure they're under the same parent also helps with a lot of that poor user experience and better navigation.
Mm-hmm. No, those are all great points. Just really making that navigation very clear about what your page is about, make it visually appealing. I can tell you, just tooting Shelby's horn a little bit, recently we had a client that we improved their navigation structure with the mega menu, and their time on page went up over 40% in a quarter. So it's clearly something that if you take the time to do that, that usually is that big touch point, and it makes a huge difference. So my next question is for Christine. So qualitative data from Google Analytics and HubSpot are extremely valuable when making decisions on how to improve your website and marketing initiatives, but qualitative data is just as important. So how have you gauged feedback from your audience to make changes on your website?
Thanks, Allie. That's a great question. So I'll start by saying we were the client that John described. We were looking at site visits and we're like, okay, great. Either they're up, they're down, and that's what we were gauging our success. That was our meter. So we've evolved. And the main thing we do is we listen to the voice of our customers, and we're lucky to get their feedback in multiple ways. We hear their comments from our sales managers, who are actually our feet on the street. They're out there, they're talking with customers every day. We have surveys, we have some web feedback, and we get a lot of information via some phone calls too. So we take what we hear and we kind of digest all of that, and we brainstorm how do we address some of these concerns and these questions or these comments. For example, last year, we implemented our chatbot feature based on feedback that we heard that our customers really just want to get to the answers that they need quickly. And it might take too long to navigate through the website. So how can they get the answers faster? So chatbot really was a good answer to that problem. So that this feature can answer questions very quickly and efficiently, and we can also track to see what customers are looking for and base future content on that. We also take a look at what customers are searching for, not in Google, but on our website. So are they searching for anything, most frequently that we can take and perhaps proactively create content to address those questions? So they can ultimately get to what they need faster. That's the ultimate goal, is to get them to our website and they get them what they need faster and then convert.
Those are all great points. And I love that you mentioned so many various channels that you're kind of aggregating together to make those informed decisions. And I love that you brought up the point about chatbot, just because I think that is often an opportunity. People might think that it's something that people have to live chat with, but HubSpot actually does have a great automated chatbot that you can build. So actually, I want to ask you about that, John. So what would you suggest to create a good automated chatbot that can really create those efficiencies, provide that new conversion opportunity for users, and better qualify leads in real time on websites?
Yeah. So chatbots often get a bad rap, to be honest, in a lot of cases, as do things like pop-ups. If we're talking CRO, we can't talk like pop-ups or interstitials, that sort of stuff. They get a terrible rap, like, oh my God, I don't want this automation thing to happen. I want to talk to a real person, but then how do I staff that sort of thing? Pop-ups are like, hey, these things get in the way. I'll talk about chatbots as well too, but they convert and they work, and that's why you see them all over the place. I do want to talk a little bit, as well too, about getting your gut out of it and following where the data leads. Like your gut can influence where you want to look, but rely on what the data says. That's a general statement I have about CRO and digital in general is trust the data. But when it comes to chatbots and how to set it up properly for conversions, the first thing about chatbots is it's not all chatbots are created equal. You can do a lot with these automated bots. You can have them be 100% automated and just running on pre-established scripts. You can have them, you can take out the bot in general and just have it be a live chat if you want as well too. Or you can do what a lot of folks do is they have chatbots can start the conversation and then kind of sort the lead types or the conversation types by what the answers are and then kick them to a real person if available. So there's a lot of different options. So in general, what I would say though, to set up a chat bot for conversions, if we're talking bot only, it's think of the chat bot or any tool, any item in digital as a tool, as a means to an end. So whenever you're building anything, think, what is my ultimate goal with this? If my ultimate goal is leads, think that. My ultimate goal is education on a specific product, think that. You need to have a very specific understanding of what that chatbot is and what it isn't and how it's going to influence the person interacting with it. You can have multiple threads within the same bot, but what that means is you're gonna have to build different scripts associated with what that action you want to take that user is. So start with the end goal and then work backwards about what you would normally think that folks would ask about. So if I want leads, I got to think, what kind of lead is that? So we got to talk about lead quality. And here at Sync Show and in other places as well too, especially for HubSpot users, we talk about marketing qualified and sales qualified leads just as a basis. Sales qualified lead means I'm ready to do business. I want a salesperson to call me right now and talk about pricing. Marketing qualified is I'm interested in your product or service. Here's my email address for more information later, but I'm not ready to buy yet. I'm kind of in that research phase. Start with what kind of lead you're looking to get. Everybody always wants that sales qualified lead, but if you only go after that, you're leaving a ton of leads on the table. And a lot of folks, like, you need to nurture them. Not everyone's ready to spend $10 million by filling out a form and buying online, right? Sometimes they want to be dated a little bit before they actually pull the trigger on certain things, especially on high ticket items, especially with all our clients that are in the B2B industry. So start with the end in mind, what kind of lead that you want, and then work backwards logically and say, okay, what do I want? What step do I want them to take in order to get there, and work backwards? And this is really scripting. So it's kind of like having a dialogue with somebody. If you were having a salesperson, what kind of questions do people ask in order to get to a sale or to a lead sort of thing? And you can work backwards from that. You can't work from the start. Okay, if they ask this, then answer it this way. And then if they answer it this way, if it's a yes or no question, on the no path, send them in this direction. On the yes path, send them in this direction. Again, the goal is not to lose them and have them just get frustrated and click out. Their goal is to answer the questions as well as you can to move them in the path toward, if we're talking leads, toward the conversion path. If it's an education piece, move them toward finding the right product or resource page online that you need them to go to. But really treat this as if it's a conversation. And you don't have to hide the fact, by the way, that it's a bot. A lot of people are like, oh, do I even say it's a bot or do I not say it's a bot? Most of us are smart enough to know when we're talking to a bot or not. As good as the AI is, it's not so good that I can be like, I can tell pretty quick within 2 or 3 questions. They're not passing the Turing test here. Like, I know it's a robot or not. So just make sure you have an end goal in mind. You don't have to hide the fact that you're a bot. You can say, hi, I'm Sync Show's bot. I'm here to help you better understand marketing capabilities. What can I help you with today? And then what you can do as far as interfaces go, you have multiple options, especially with the HubSpot builder. You can have multiple choice, drop down, free answer. So they can just answer something and then based on keywords, send them in a certain direction as well too, and move them down the path. So there's a lot of different options. One thing I will say about conversions as well too, you've got your ultimate goal in a chatbot of saying, contact a sales rep. Let's just say that's what it is. Hey, I'm going to get you in touch with Jerry. Here's his phone number. He'll be calling you in 5 minutes, whatever it is, sort of thing. But you can ask for that qualifying lead information up front. And this happens all the time. What I mean by that is, a lot of people are like, I only want I want their company size, what their revenue is, what exactly they're looking for, and then I want to reach out to them. Well, that'd be really nice, but not everyone's ready to give that information yet, right? That's your ultimate goal at the end of the chatbot sequence, maybe. But you can ask for the conversion point up front. How many of us have seen those chatbots that say, hey, can I get your name and email just in case we drop off so I'm able to contact you again? Guess what? The chatbot doesn't need that. that is a lead gen play right there. And right there, they've taken your contact information. It's just a marketing qualified lead right there. Hey, I know you're interested in my product. You just gave me your information. Now I own your contact record, and I'm starting to build an owned audience that I can do a lot of other things with as well too. So request MQLs up front, know what your conversion point is at the end. If it's an SQL, that's great. And then map out just basic conversational points. And we actually use, what is it, Shelby? Google Sketch, in order to actually map out the pathways and questions and answers that people have. Hope that answers your question, Ellie.
No, you were extremely thorough, so thank you for that.
I'm nothing if not thorough. All right.
For sure. And I was laughing when you said that people will know that it's a bot most of the time, because there's one client I'm thinking of in particular. She actually put her name on the chatbot and her headshot when they moved over from a live chat to an automated, and all the time people don't realize it's a chatbot. So they'll talk to her about, hey, we were just chatting, but I wanted to follow up via email about this. And then she'll quickly go and look in HubSpot, and sure enough, she'll see all the information there. But it can be pretty convincing. So I thought that was funny. So pivoting a little bit from chatbot, Shelby, oftentimes we find that clients are coming to us and they're saying, my website really isn't performing, I want to blow it up. But oftentimes you can kind of take that step back and kind of look at things holistically and use your current system to make changes. So my question for you is, how do we make those incremental changes that can deliver significant ROI? And can you share any examples of clients you've worked with who have seen that increase in website sessions or leads due to our CRO efforts?
Yeah, so one of the things, there are tons of simple changes you can generally make to a page to see any kind of results. They're not always going to be good. They're not always going to be great, difference in results. Sometimes it doesn't work, but the biggest thing is really just taking the page you have now and testing little tweaks and continuing to test when you see things are starting to perform better or things are starting to perform worse, and constantly pivoting to see what ultimately is the best way to get your users to convert. So some of those changes you can do are simple things like changing your button colors and making sure every conversion point on your page is the same color, so users know, okay, that means go, let's go. Or it's making the button copy more actionable. They might not understand if you're saying, download this, they don't know what that is. So making sure they know in the button copy that it drives them to action versus something submissive. And it could be minor layout tweaks as well, in terms of like page order or just better chunking out the information so it's easier to understand and it better drives you to the next path. So some of the changes we've seen for clients, we've had taking like those design blog CTAs you can put in HubSpot blogs and taking them and seeing what can we do to make this more appealing looking, but also getting more clicks that go to that next offer. So we've designed multiple of these CTAs, and with HubSpot run ABC tests to see which ones get better results. And we've seen this CTA we did for a client, we saw about 31.7% increase in submissions for that offer that they were trying to get clicks through from their blog. And some of the options we did for them didn't work, and some of them, like the one that got the 31% increase, did work. So it's a good example too of how you can make these small changes and they might not work off the bat, but that also doesn't mean to stop and not continue to test these changes.
No, I think that's a good point. And I like that you mentioned ABC testing. I need to start using that too, Shelby, because oftentimes two variables isn't enough. So I think that's great that you mentioned that. Christine, so we've seen pretty explosive growth for Forsomatic since you've come on board. Can you talk to us about why you think you've been successful in adopting CRO and seeing those results?
Sure. So with Forsomatic, we've really embraced digital marketing. So we realized that was the way to go. We understand our audience with Forsomatic. Our tagline for the brand is "Pumping Made Easy." So with that in mind, we create tools and content to make the entire process for our customers, from picking their pump to maintaining their pump, easy. So they know they can come to the Versomatic website and they can learn how to do something. It's not always us selling to them. It's educational as well. So we really know our Versomatic audience, and we market to them accordingly. That's honestly, that's really it. Knowing your audience, know their needs, know where they go to get their information, and then making sure we're putting the information there for them. One thing that we've seen that's been very successful is our blogs. So we started doing blogs a couple years ago, and there's a wide variety of topics, but we found that anything to help our customers make the whole process easy, troubleshooting their pump. Our blog area is where they can go and get answers very quickly. So to summarize, it's really just knowing the needs of our customers, doing a deep dive, and then really building a site and creating content that's based on what they're doing, with keeping our theme in mind of pumping made easy.
No, I think those are all great points. So I want to take a step back, because I know for the audience, we're probably putting a lot of different tactics out there, and people are like, this is all great, but how do we get started? So I'm going to direct this question to John. So in order to develop this strong CRO plan, you first need to establish goals and metrics, but that can be really daunting. So how would you suggest companies get started?
Yeah, no, happy to answer that. I did want to follow up with Christine. I agree. Know thy audience is like the first tenet of marketing, digital or otherwise. Like, who are you talking to and how do they want to be spoken to and in what way? That alone is conversion rate optimization. It's not always like these little tactics and trinkets and that sort of stuff. It's speaking to your audience in the right way. It's like, oh, they get me. That's going to help me convert as well too. So I just wanted to, it's so important. I just wanted to say that as well too. So where do you start? Like, how do you set metrics? Like, where the heck do you even, like, how do you know what's good? How do you know what's bad? Very common. One thing I would guard against is the first question I usually get when people are asking me about this is they don't necessarily ask directly. A lot of times they'll say, well, what does the industry do? Which is an okay question, to be honest, but it's kind of a keeping up with the Joneses question. It's a little bit different per industry, per product or service, per website, per goal. So, usually we hem and haw a little bit. It's like, well, between 2 and 4% conversion rate on a website. So if you've got 100,000 visitors a month, figure 2.5% to 4%, somewhere around there are going to convert, sort of thing. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it. So, like, how quality is your traffic? If everyone's on there for 12 seconds, 5 seconds, and they leave, I don't care how much traffic you get, your conversion rate is going to be incredibly low, right? So there's a lot of nuance to that answer. So that's usually the first question that folks ask is, well, what's average? I say, well, there's average, and then where we're starting with you, sort of thing, or where you need to be and what your clients are doing. So you could say between 2.5% and 4.5% would be a decent average starting point for conversion rate for websites. What I would rather have the conversation around is, what is your business goals? Like, what not just keeps the lights on for you, but what did you do last year? What do you need to do this year? And what's the difference between the two? So, and that's just from a digital standpoint. So, but I also want to ask from the business standpoint. So you could go with the industry averages. Sure. That doesn't always meet the bottom line of what everyone needs, right? So, and conversion points are also not all the same. If you've got a $10 million sale and that's only accounts for 1% of your conversion point, but 50% of your budget, your lower conversion rates with a higher, let's just say, qualified conversion is much better than actual conversion rate. So it's a tough one. You can mix and match those numbers in so many different ways. It's hard just to put an actual number on it. So what I always say is, well, what is your goal as a business? And then we back into it from there. So if they say, I want to grow by well, I always hear 10x, of course, but let's just put it somewhere realistic. I want to grow by 4x, something like that, right? And I say, well, that's great. So what does that actually mean from a either sales or conversion standpoint of what you're currently doing? Well, that means I need to convert, I need to even sell X number of products more at this price point, or I need to convert this many more at this price point, sort of thing. So we say, okay, from there, then let's look at the actual pages that are impacting these conversions or not impacting these conversions, see what they're currently doing, and then let's look at the amount of numbers we either, this goes back to my original comment, we either get more traffic into that spot or we work on conversion rate in order to take that existing traffic to convert more. And that's where you got to really start looking to say, okay, if I've only got 5 or 10 visitors a week to this one page and 1 out of 5 converts, that's a really good conversion rate. But at that point, we're going to say, you got to get more traffic to this page, because I don't care what your CRO does, you get 2, it's not going to do it for you. So I hate to say it depends, but what I would start with is say, what is your business goal? And say, how far away from your business goal or your current goal are you? Look at the pages that impact what you're trying to do. Look at the metrics per those pages on what either total number of visitors or the existing conversion rate. And then say, all right, let's do the backwards math. How many more of either X cells would I need or Y visitors would I need in order to get close to match or exceed my goals? And then from there, you've got a metric to work off of. You say, okay, I need to get 50,000 more visitors at my existing conversion rate, or I need to take these 50,000 visitors and double my conversion rate in order to make this happen. But start with your business goal. People always just look at marketing as this, what is everybody else doing? I'd rather look at it from a, what does your company need standpoint and work back from there. If you say, what is everybody else doing? You're going down the wrong path and you're comparing yourself to others that may not make business sense to you. That'd be my advice.
I think that's a great way to approach it. So thank you for sharing that intel. So Shelby, I'm going to pivot to you. So oftentimes when people are thinking about CRO, they want to start with their homepage. So what are some tweaks and recommendations that you would have if someone says to you, okay, I want to do CRO and I only want to work on my homepage? What are those quick changes that you can make that make a big difference from a design standpoint?
Yeah, I think a lot of those changes you can make are going to be just visual changes with using color better, using your layout better to make sure the page flows. And then honestly, it could go back to our menu talk, making sure your navigation is clean, polished, is better able to direct. And then making sure the main conversion point for your page, having that one, goal versus multiple points that people can branch off of, having that one goal for the page, even your home page, to make that makes it easier for users to go down that conversion path versus if you're, you want them to request a quote, but also download a brochure, but also get that brochure. It makes it a little more, you don't really direct your users as much as if you have that one goal.
No, I think that's a great point. Oftentimes we try to appease everyone and give them multiple touch points. Maybe you want this, maybe you want that. And it almost creates that confusion for the visitor. So maybe at the top of the page, just having that very clear call out to what you want them to do and just making that very, very clear on the top of the page. Absolutely. I definitely see that all the time. So Christine, on that conversion vein, how have you made it easier for customers to convert on your website, both through you or through your distributor network?
So I spoke earlier about us embracing digital marketing, and we've done that a lot. In this case, for our distributors, we have a page that is the bridge between end users to distributors in their area, and that's our distributor locator page. So a customer can click on that page, look at where they're located, and find a distributor close to them. That is our most heavily trafficked page. So we know that we have to nail that page and make it easy to use and very accurate. So we've definitely made sure to keep that updated. And in fact, we're just about to release a new version of it. So we spend time thinking about it, listening to feedback, and then making the improvements on that page. So another thing we did last year was we created a new tool. It's our selector tool. So in the theme of pumping made easy, we made finding the pump that you need easy. So Forsomatic, much of our audience is younger audience, maybe new to the industry of pumping. And so we asked them a few simple questions to walk them through what their needs are for their application. And then at the end of it, they get our recommended pump for them. We used to not have a tool like that. And this tool has really made it much easier for our customers. And it's also increased our CRO on that page. I'd say additionally, we made the conversion options plentiful. So I remember in the past, we used to have a form maybe on our contact page. And now you can really find a way to reach out to us on nearly every page of the website. So we've just made it easier to kind of make the connection between the web visitor and us or our distributor.
Mm-hmm. Awesome. Yeah, I think those are great points, and that that pump selector tool is really unique. So I'm guessing that the touch points and the various back and forth between salespeople are probably much less, and salespeople can very easily see that intel of exactly what someone needs. So I'm guessing that probably helped to shorten the sales cycle as well.
Sure, absolutely.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really neat tool. So moving along, John, oftentimes, if you update your form, that's really the place where you can see a lot of improvement in your overall conversion. So whether that's changes to the functionality, the format, or even the placement of a button. So can you provide some examples or best practices that you've used with clients to improve form conversion and lead qualification on websites?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm going to hand some of this off to Shelby as well too as I answer it. But a few general rules about form fills. Well, let's just get some of the basic ones out of the way. People hate filling out forms. So if you can have fewer cells for them to fill out, the better. And I don't just mean fewer required cells. Like that is also a thing. Fewer required cells is great, but even fewer cells is better. Every cell that you remove from a form that somebody has to fill out increases your conversion rate, just flat out. Everybody always wants more and more and more and more information. Like my salespeople want all this information on the lead so that they can reach out and have proper conversations. I agree, in a perfect world, that'd be phenomenal. But I would rather trade a lead for no lead. So even if it requires a follow-up phone call, a nurture campaign to go along with it, whatever that is, I want that person's information. And a little bit about that as well too. I talk a lot about owned audience, especially with my clients. An owned audience is an audience whose contact information you have, and you can basically do whatever you want with it. You can target them on socials, you can target them on display campaigns, you can target them via email, of course, and HubSpot has some great targeting tools as well too. If you know a person's email, they come on, you have custom content specifically for them. This is your owned audience you can do a lot with. So just having their contact information goes a long way, even if you don't have their company size, their annual revenue, the exact product that you want them to go off that they're looking to buy. That is ideal for sure, and you're looking to get there. So a lot of folks are saying, well, I need all this information on a form in order to close a deal. No, it's easier to have this information in order to close a deal, and it's the final step. So one thing about forms is less is more. Let's just put it that way. Less is more on the forms. There are a lot of tactics you can have if you're like, but I do need to qualify this lead and I want the form to do it for me. That's usually what I hear. That's why folks want all this. I don't want somebody buying one product when we sell in gross, sort of thing. Okay, I get that. But there's automation that can happen after the form fill that you can have associated with that as well too. So even if you just have their contact information, just an email, you can send a follow-up email that says, here's what we offer, here's what we need, tell us more about you, with another form afterwards, but at least you have that information, because it could be a qualified lead that's like, I don't have the time to fill out this. I don't want to be contacted right now. So anyway, form fills, less is more. You can always get information in other ways. I have another client as well too. They service a lot of manufacturers. It was actually for job applications, which is job postings are huge right now have always been in manufacturing, but especially in this economy. They wanted to know, previous education, previous experience, age, gender, all this other stuff. And it was really reducing their conversion rates on their form. What we did instead is we just said first name, last name, and then email or phone number, and then like a yes or no question. And that was it. Then on the thank you page, we actually followed up with a secondary form. The thank you page said, thank you so much for your information. We have to reach out while you're waiting for someone to contact you. Can you tell us more about yourself? And what's interesting enough is you got them to take an action to show their interest in you. And that secondary form actually had an 80% fill rate, which was crazy, because if we had just put it on that primary page, it would have dissuaded a bunch of those fills. So we broke the form up into two, which actually technically was more work for them. But since the user psychologically was already bought into it, they're more likely to fill out that second form. So that would be one thing as far as sales go. Another one is location of the form itself. Top of fold, which means you don't have to scroll at all, converts much better than bottom of fold for a website. The form's right there. A purpose-built page, we call them landing pages or conversion pages. If there's a lot going on the page and the form is just one of the elements, people get distracted easily, they get confused easily, they get tired of reading stuff easily. So if you don't make it really easy for them to see where the form is, they'll leave as well too. And at a previous company, we actually tested this out quite a bit as far as the imagery that goes next to a form. Even that is important. What's interesting is folks, we take visual cues as human beings a lot, as opposed to the written cue. Shelby can talk more about colors and when to use arrows and all this other stuff. But what we noticed is we had a form and we had a picture of people next to the form as a background image or something like that. If somebody was looking in the direction, their eyes were looking in the direction of the form, or their finger or something like that was, or the image was like pointed in that direction where your eyes follow that image, we saw a non-negligible increase in form fill rates just based on that, which is very interesting. So if you can do anything visual to get people's eyes to go to the form, keep the form top of fold and have fewer cells, your conversion rates will go up.
Those are all great points. Shelby, anything to add as far as the design overall of the form?
Yeah, I mean, besides the, last field, generally better, a lot of an easy way too to make it a lot easier for your user to fill out is making sure you're not grouping your form fields in too many columns, one after another. So that way it's better I like to use the term chunking it out better, but it makes it easier for them to see all of the fields they do have to fill out. And it kind of makes it a little less visually stressful, I guess, too, I think. And I'd also say is just besides placement on the page, making sure that it's your vision goes to that form. So whether that's as simple as adding like a little outline to the form or just adding some kind of visual style to it, so that way it pops off the page, but also it's just a lot easier for the user to see and a lot harder for them to ignore.
I think just to add on to that as well too, and from a content perspective, they want to know what happens, what they need to do, and what happens when they fill the form out. So if you have a little just a blurb at the top, contact us and we'll get in contact, like sales rep will get back to you within 24 hours. We have a lot of clients that do that. It's pretty effective. Or if it's reach out to us and you will get you will get this form emailed to you. If it's like an offer, like a ebook or something, white paper, you do a lead gen that way. They want to know what's going to happen if I fill this out. Mm-hmm. And it has to be worth their time and effort to do. And we all know what's happening once we fill forms out. We are getting contacted. So we need to make sure that it's like a payment system. Instead of money, it's my email. I am paying you with my email in order to get the information that I want. So it better be worth my quote unquote money.
No, I think that's a great point. And yeah, the amount of information you ask for should equate to the offer. So maybe if you're asking for a quote, that is something where you can ask us more in-depth questions because they've determined that they want to buy from you. But if it's something like a newsletter fill where, hey, subscribe to our newsletter, you shouldn't be asking for first name, last name, email, blood type. So I think that's definitely a good point to get across as well. Christine, Question for you. So one thing we see is that activating off of meaningful customer insights is a great way to bring a brand to life. So how does this show up in your marketing activities for a brand like Forsomatic that's more focused on making pumping easier, as opposed to a brand like Sandpiper, which is more of a premium brand?
So that's a really great question, and one that we've asked ourselves for many years, because essentially our two brands within Warren Rupp, Forsomatic and Sandpiper, manufacture and sell the same item. So we differentiate ourselves in the way that we go to market. So a few years ago, we rebranded Forsomatic. So a lot of meetings, a lot of talk about who is our customer, what are they looking for, how is it different than the customers of Sandpiper. So, and we came up with our theme of pumping made easy. And now everything that we do supports that theme. So we know we have newer pump users. They're not as experienced as the Sandpiper customers who maybe have been in the field for a lot longer. They know what they're doing. They know the value of the Sandpiper pump. They speak like a highly engineered language. So it's very different than the pumping made easy concept. So we just really treat each of the brands like two children who are related, but they're very different. So that's really our attempt at differentiating those two brands and still having a meaningful marketing campaign for each and reaching their unique customers.
Excellent points. So I'd like to open this question to all the panelists. Oftentimes people are seeing their website as a set it and forget it entity, and they're really not making updates as much as possible unless it's completely dire, like they need to change a spec on a page or something like that. So how often should people be evaluating their website and marketing efforts and implementing changes? And I'll start with John, because you're on my left.
No problem. I definitely have an opinion on this one for sure. So anything digital should never be set it and forget it. The only time you would ever set it and forget it is if you're actively collecting data on something and you don't want to touch it to mess up the experiment, but then you have a set time, either number of visitors or actual date time that you're going to go back and look at things. We're not traditional marketing. We're not outside advertising and billboard where you put it up and there it is and it sits there for however long sort of thing. The whole benefit of digital is the fact that you have data coming in every second of every day, and that data is there for you to make decisions on. Gone are the days of a website being just a brochure that happens to be on the internet. It is a workhorse for you. It should do something beyond just, it should actively do something. It's already passively doing something by giving you, folks, your brand information, your content, your contact, that sort of thing. It's passively doing that. But what it's doing is it's actively collecting data. Facebook is not a social media company. Facebook is a data company. Google is not a search engine. It's a data company. This is what they do. And this is why they're online. This is why they're so successful. They look at the information all the time and they make decisions based on the data. So how long and how often should you look at your website, make changes to your website? All the time. All the time. Now it's not just, hey, I like blue instead of green, so I'm gonna make this blue instead of green. If that's a brand decision and that's a larger discussion, that's fine. But don't always make changes just to make changes. And a point on that as well too, is a lot of folks say, well, I'm just tired of my website. We've had this site for 4 or 5 years, and I think it's time for a change. I say, well, you've seen the website every day for 4 or 5 years. Have your users seen the website for every day for 4 or 5 years? I look at new versus returning users. If it's a well-functioning site that converts well, they get your message across, is not outmoded or outdated or unsecure, and it's doing the job, don't just change it because you're bored with it. Let the data dictate what needs to be done. If it's a business decision, that's different. But if it's just I think it's time for a change. So what I'm saying is always look at the information that comes into your website. Your website is a data aggregate tool that happens to be a website, and make adjustments to it. The website should serve a function, and you are a business. That business needs to make money, right? In order to stay, that's the function of a business. You need to make money in order to employ people, in order to sell a product, in order to solve problems. So you need to make money. Your website should be a net multiplier when it comes to that. So don't just set it and forget it. Never. I would say, I was answering the question, I don't know, every day, every minute. it depends how much time you have in order to, dedicate to it, which is one reason why a lot of people do business with SyncShow, because they know the value and they don't have the time to dedicate, so they outsource it, right? It's like a mechanic for your car. You could probably figure it out, maybe, but you want to pay an expert in order to do it, sort of thing, and figure it out and look at it and make sure and maintain it. That's another thing as well too. Even just beyond CRO, technology advances and technology changes. I know our clients know this, but Google just came out last June, I want to say, with Core Web Vitals, which was a large overhaul of their Google algorithm, which had a lot to do with page speed and site speed and that sort of stuff. You need to be on top of this and continually to make adjustments in order to stay up with the technology as well too, to make sure your site doesn't fall behind. It's like an actual salesperson picks up the phone and make calls. People buy differently these days, right? They expect to be sold to differently these days. And if you're not constantly training your salespeople to sell in the way they need to sell, you're seeing your sales drop off. You're going to have less effective salespeople. It's the same thing with the website. If you don't constantly look at the site, how it's performing, make updates to it, you're going to continue to drop off as well too. That's my opinion on it.
Well, that's great. I would love your opinion, Christine, just because you do have two separate brands with separate HubSpot websites. I mean, how often are you guys evaluating and making those changes on your site?
So we make smaller updates on a pretty regular basis. We're always adding new content to our blog post, for example. But then we strategically add new features to the website. Less frequently, but it's like quality versus quantity. So by adding new features like the selector tool, that really gives us the opportunity to do a full marketing campaign around it. We can send an email campaign. We can do some social posts pointing everyone to this new tool that's on the website. So not only does adding new content and tools to the website benefit the site in general and traffic, but it also gives you the opportunity to create additional marketing to support those new tools, which I think is excellent.
Absolutely. Shelby, anything to add about how often you should be evaluating your website and doing CRO improvements?
I don't have too much more to add. I mean, really, both of these guys took the words out of my mouth. With a lot of it, it's just constantly checking and seeing and testing what you can, and keeping your site up to date as much as you can is really important.
Absolutely. So any closing words from the panelists before I open up to questions about, hey, if you're thinking, hey, if I could give one piece of advice to someone who's looking to start CRO, this is what I would recommend. I'll start with Christine. I'll put you on the spot. Start with you first.
No, that's totally fine. I would say it sounds very basic, but keep it simple. Honestly, keep it simple. I know as a consumer, I don't want to have to think too much. I want it to be intuitive. I want it to be easy. I know I've said the word easy a lot today, but I think just keeping it very simple. Do not complicate it. It does not have to be complicated.
No, that's great closing words. Shelby, what about you?
I think it would just be start small with your initiatives. Don't worry about, doing CRO your whole site. Start small. What are your most important pages you want to drive conversions? And starting small with those initiatives you can take to slowly start to see what can help and what doesn't help.
Yeah, I think that's key. So doing those key conversion pages in your home pages is huge, because again, if you try to overhaul everything at once, it is very overwhelming. I think that's a great closing point. And John, closing words, advice, recommendations.
I love start small and keep it easy. Those are super key. And Christine said earlier about know thy audience is really important. But I would take a step back and just say align your business goals to align your tactics to what your business goals are. Like I see a lot of people just start to make slight adjustments to their site just to like tweak this number and that number and get better here and there without having a bottom line. It directly impacts the bottom line. So look what's important. Let's start with what's important to my business and then work backwards from there. So, where do I start on the website? I want to keep it small and keep it easy, but like what section? Well, what's the most impactful for your business? Look at that area first.
Absolutely. So great. Wanted to open it up to the audience. Any questions for the panelists? You can either come off mute or feel free to put it into the chat.
I'll just ask like a general question to kick us off for the Sync Show team and Christine, that the panelist who's worked on CRO previously. What has been like the most fun or the most surprising piece of CRO that you've done?
That's a great question. All right, Shelby, I see you look excited, so I'll start with you.
I think for me, a lot of times we've done tons of just different blog CTAs, and it's finding out, you having that hypothesis, well, I think if I design the CTA this way, this is going to get more clicks and go on to more conversions, and then finding out that your other tester, you're like, we'll also test this too, finding out you were completely wrong and that it was actually the other one that was way better, and it was you didn't see it coming. I think that's probably the most surprising, and but it's also really fun to see that, because it kind of just shows, the littlest like tweaks can bring out like the results you didn't expect.
No, I think that's a great point. And CRO is humbling too. It's like, oh man,
Yeah.
I knew this.
Yeah, I'm learning something new every day.
Right, for sure. John, any thing that surprised you or anything fun that you've done in your CRO endeavors with clients?
Sure. In the vein of keeping it simple, the most surprising is, I think, I've seen the highest conversion increases sometimes just by changing a button color. That's it. And you see double-digit conversion increases. You're like, oh my God. So like really it is sometimes that simple. It's not always that simple, but you just change a color from blue to orange and it pops more and people are like, oh, I click there, got it. The most fun, which is also the most, I don't know, enraging also, is a lot of tools that we use so like we use Lucky Orange, but there's Hotjar, there's some other ones that are basically screen recording of user interactions of your website. So I'll review the video sometimes of mouse movements, and you can really see where people expect to have something click, and they have what we call rage clicks. They just click, 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 click in one visit, and it doesn't go anywhere. You're like, okay, I should probably click somewhere. So I think that is the most fun. It's kind of a bad thing that it's fun to watch that, but it's like, oh, it's fun, and it's because you get to really in real time see how people are interacting with the site, and it's kind of that like gallows humor. You're like, oh my God, how do we not make that a button, sort of thing. So
No, I think that's a good point. Yeah, you brought up a point for me too, John, with the rage clicks. So recently I had a client that everyone was clicking on the map. So one of the big changes that we made with our CRO efforts was making that map to their locations pages clickable. And we saw a significant increase in traffic to those pages from existing users on the website. So yeah, heat maps are critical. And then Christine, anything that fun endeavor or something that surprised you?
So what I think is fun might not be what others think is fun, but marketing geeks will think it's fun. I think that the ease and the quickness that we can change things like a headline in a call to action and really see the difference, like that motivates me to keep trying new headlines. For example, kind of like John said, changing a color. It's amazing what a small tweak can make. And then the other thing is, I think what's exciting is that other people within my company now see the value of the effort we put into CRO because they are seeing results. And so to have more buy-in and more support in the discussion of CRO and the website is exciting for me, because I can see other people, I can see like them understanding like why it's so important. And for me, that's really valuable for the whole company.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah, I think historically sales and marketing used to be very disjointed, but now with digital, I mean, you can very clearly see those little tweaks and how it helps to move that bottom line. Yeah. Any other questions before we close from the audience today? Going once, going twice. Don't be shy. All right, I'll take it. I know it's the end of the day. Thank you all for joining today. We sincerely appreciate it. I will be sending out the recording from this if you want to refer back to it, but we sincerely appreciate your participation today. Thank you to our wonderful panelists for sharing their knowledge.